Oh good, this is on. Does anyone want to come up to the front? It's a pretty small crowd. Okay, well I'm going to start with a little anecdote of mine, which is one of my favorites. When her assistant opened the door, the two men filed into the room, and they stopped on the doorstep. They looked around, very confused, and glanced at each other, trying to answer the question of where was the desk? Because dominating the room was one large circular table with their host perched on the edge of her chair. She said, to their bemused faces, "Come on in, we have a lot of work to get done." We'll come back to her in a bit later. As Anjana said, my name is Garretson Oester. I do many things on this campus, whether that be as a representative for undergraduate student government, or as the host of a public affairs discussion show on WRUW, or as a resident assistant for second years up in Carlton Road. But today I'm here as an advocate for the liberal arts and collaborative leadership. Now, liberal arts are probably not the first thing one would expect to hear at Case Western Reserve University. Here, we're far more often focused on our own personal goals, whether in business or medicine or engineering. We often do what's comfortable, what makes us feel good, and what's going to give us the best chance for future success. However, I hope to change your mind about that, because when we often fall into this idea of solving problems through experimentation or a differential equation or two, we leave out a vast swath of the diverse ideas that percolate this campus. We also need to ensure that the next generation of leaders is there to meet the challenges ahead. And luckily for us, we are those leaders. So how can we build the future through collaborative leadership? And this comes back to the liberal arts. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are kind of pondering, oh, so it's the liberal arts colleges out in New England, right? Wrong. The liberal arts are actually an ancient Greek system of education. They were developed to build the skills necessary to be a free and contributing citizen. They are rooted in 7 basic principles: music, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, logic, rhetoric, and one other that I'm missing, grammar. Very important. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, great. Now, why do we need to use a 2,500-year-old educational system to solve the problems of today? And I agree. Education has changed immensely since then. But that doesn't mean the principles still don't apply. The liberal arts equip students with a broad base of knowledge, designed to solve the problems and weigh the merits of complex ideas. And today they've morphed into this powerful mix focused on sciences, the humanities, philosophy, which really emphasize skills like communication and logic and quantitative investigation mixed with qualitative analysis. Now these are essential because we live in this global system. The problems that we solve today are not between you and I as neighbors down the street. They're between the United States and Mexico over water rights in the Rio Grande River. But the countries speak totally different languages and have total different values placed on that water. And the liberal arts allow us to incorporate those diverse viewpoints and tackle them. But how do we get the leadership out of that? And I'll acknowledge, leaders cannot be pulled out of a hat, and I think you'd all agree with me. So I've been pondering some of the qualities that I think are important, and the first one that comes to mind is intelligence. But other than that, most of them aren't really inherent qualities. They're things like compassion and intuition that are necessary to bring people around the table, get the stakeholders together, and create the solutions. This is especially important as you look to keep the final vision in mind through the often arduous slog of debate, discussion, and conflict. So where did I become an advocate for the liberal arts? And that's really rooted back in high school. I was sitting in the principal's office. Oh wait, that actually sounds really bad. I was not in trouble. I was having a meeting about parking on campus. It was myself, my vice president, the principal, and one of his assistant principals. And we had the argument that parking was being handled like an antediluvian cattle dispute. It was just a disaster. And the assistant principal wanted everything to be rosy. So we both presented our cases, and the principal looked at us and looked over to his assistant principal, and then just arbitrated the solution. there was no discussion, there was no debate, and we all left that room annoyed. So why did it happen? This is the interactive part. Why did we all leave annoyed? Anyone? Yes?
You didn't speak up about your opinion.
Oh. So we did speak up about our opinion.
Oh. You didn't get what you wanted.
We didn't get what we wanted. Why? So the premise was we were in the principal's office talking about parking on campus. It was myself and my vice president and the principal and the assistant principal who ran parking. And we thought parking was being handled horribly. And the assistant principal said everything was rosy. And the principal kind of just said, okay, we're going to kind of split it down the middle and everyone's going to be happy, right? So why was everyone not happy? Do you want me to give it to you? He didn't build consensus. And because of that, we all left annoyed and irritated. And I can tell you right now, I left that office and went back to all the people in Student Congress and complained a tremendous amount about how he wasn't listening to us. And arbitrating like what he did is often much faster, but it doesn't make people satisfied with the outcome. And this is super important because liberal arts are a way that you can incorporate those diverse perspectives into that discussion and acknowledge that they're supposed to be there. This also has emphasis in the business world or the medical world because companies often jump to hire people with degrees that they know what they are. So if you're applying for a job and you and another candidate are there and they've majored in marketing and you've majored in, I don't know, cognitive linguistics, the company can very easily look at the person with the business degree and say, we know what you've studied. You've studied this and this and this and you know how to do the work. And it's often a hard sell for that person with the other degree to say why they're valued. And this is of particular importance because they have a tremendous amount of value in that they see those diverse perspectives. And one interesting thing is that in the long run, the people who've studied liberal arts are actually more successful than people who've studied professionally or pre-professionally. And luckily, I'm not just making that up. The American Association of Colleges and Universities looked at all of the census data from 2010 and compared a lot of the educational statistics with people's income and that sort of thing. And they found that people who major in the liberal arts or study them in some way actually earned $2,000 more at the midpoint in their career than those who studied professional or pre-professional subjects. Additionally, 10% of S&P 500 companies have CEOs who studied the liberal arts. And when you compare that to the 5% of college graduates who graduate with a degree in the liberal arts, it really shows an outsized influence. And a great example of this is a company called Slack. Who here has heard of Slack? Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, it's a technology startup based in San Francisco with the principle that a lot of conversations in the business world are currently happening via email, and they really don't necessitate emails. It's kind of like a group meet or an instant messaging system for businesses, and you can build teams. It's somewhat intelligent, so it can come back and send out reminders about things. It's really a neat program. The CEO of Slack, a man named Stuart Butterworth, majored in philosophy, and he's running a tech startup in Silicon Valley. And he said, and this is my favorite quote about the liberal arts, "I learned how to follow an argument all the way down, which is invaluable in running meetings. And I learned about the ways that everyone believes something is true until they realized it wasn't true." And so it really teaches you these qualitative skills about how to think about problems and think about solutions. Which brings us back to this idea of collaborative leadership, which often seems counterintuitive to people. Well, leadership's about me, right? It's about me being successful out there over all these other people. It's about my title. And it oftentimes is about that, but it shouldn't be and it doesn't have to be. Because collaborative leadership really stresses this idea of building consensus and achieving an overarching mission through personal work towards it. So who remembers that mysterious woman at the beginning? I didn't give you her name. Well, her name is Roxanne Qualls, She's one of the most respected figures in Cincinnati politics. She was a former mayor, and I had the honor of working for her for a summer. She really sticks out as the prime example of a collaborative leader. When she is looking to solve a problem, she'll invite everyone to her office, the people who agree, the people who disagree, and the people who are experts in the field. And they'll sit down at that giant table. It really is massive. It's probably about, if you square this stage, it's probably about that big. It's huge. And she'll say, throw out all your preconceived notions. We have no ultimatums here. Nothing is sacred. Let's find a solution. And it's an approach I've modified today to fit my style of leadership. I've distilled it into some questions and ideas. So first, you have to ask, what do we know? This is essential. This is where you come up with all of the historical background on the problem you're trying to solve, whether that be performance space on campus or global warming. Then you move on to this phase of where are we now? This is where you evaluate the issue you're trying to tackle and the surrounding issues, which will then let you combine them all into one ultimate solution. Thirdly, you have to ask, where do we want to go? This is my personal favorite stage. I'm really a fan of the creative element of this. So here we throw out everything and we hold things constant for a perfect world. It's kind of like when you're doing a scientific experiment and you have ceteris paribus and you hold it constant. So you say, if we had all the money in the world and all the time and all the space, what would we do? What would this look like? How can we best solve this problem? But then, of course, reality has to intrude, and the fourth step is how do we make this happen? So here are things like the budget and time and space come in and interlude, and you have to create your actual physical goal out of that. And fifth, how do we make it happen? So by this stage, I'm bored, I'm distracted, I'm done, I've tuned out. But this is where the really detail-oriented people can come in and really make the plan into a reality. It's an applicable model. I use it all the time, whether that's in undergraduate student government. Are any of you in any of the dance groups on campus? Yes, so you know we're purchasing this dance floor, right? At some point, it's happening, trust me. Hopefully it should be in November. And we brought everyone to the table and we said, okay, what is the purpose and what are we trying to solve? How do we best get there? And we ended up finding our solution that fit within the budget and fit within the space we had, and well, not really the time because we're way late on the shipment, but fit within the time span we wanted. It's also broad enough that when you combine it with the liberal arts, it creates this powerful tool for change. Because people like collaborative leaders. People like to be provided with options. They like to think their voices matter. And that's what sparked me to realize that collaborative leadership is so valuable in our world today. So I challenge each and every one of you to consider what you want to do when you grow up. If you're anything like most people associated with Case Western Reserve, you may want to be a doctor and attend medical school, or go and be a business analyst, or perhaps go work for Microsoft out in Seattle. But I'm going to challenge you to take that one step further and take not only a depth of courses, but a breadth of courses. Take courses you wouldn't necessarily take, that you'd scoff at. Challenge you to work collaboratively and challenge you to change the world. I think we're all still idealistic enough to do